Welcome to Mostly Mets, and today what we're going to talk about is what else? The winter meetings. They got underway yesterday. Teams started arriving in Orlando for these meetings that go until Thursday of this week. And it's a bit of a different year this year. Last year, everything was all about Juan Soto. Where was Juan Soto going to sign? And it is the 1-year anniversary today of Juan Soto choosing the Mets on a 15-year deal, shocking the baseball world, and it was followed by a really disappointing season, not for Juan Soto, but for the Mets. So the Mets clearly, we don't have that excitement this year. We do have excitement because we think the Mets will be active, but there's not that big fish out there that we think the Mets are going to go out and get. There's a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty causes rumors. The nice thing about being a Mets fan right now and being able to spend the money that they do is they're involved with everyone, or at least rumored to be involved with everyone. Now, you can look at that and say half of that is probably agents of the teams or of the players leaking to the media that the Mets are involved to try to drive up the price because they know the Mets have money and are willing to spend. Is that the case? Sure. In a lot of these things, absolutely. But the Mets right now are fishing in some of the best ponds out there. Now, the biggest thing I think, or the biggest kind of question about the Mets right now is, you could say Edwin Diaz or Cody Bellinger. The biggest thing that kind of divides Mets fans right now, and we kind of don't know which way they're going to go, is one of the same things that did last year, and that is Pete Alonso. And I'm not trying to be the Pete Alonso Free Agency Watch channel. That's not what I'm here for. I think it's going to go a long time. But in this early part of the winter meetings, you've had more rumors about Pete Alonso and the Mets than anything else. So I'm going to get into some of those now. First, if you end up sticking around, you like this type of content, please subscribe, give me a like, comment, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, getting right into the rumors here. First off, Joel Sherman has wrote an article where he says an AL official has said that the length is not there for Alonso, and that a veteran agent says that he will not get 5 years and he'll be lucky to get 4. So if you look at that, you're starting to say, well, this is kind of shaping up the same way as it did last year. This might go pretty far into the offseason. Are the Mets going to wait around for Pete Alonso again? Last year, they had a little bit of a luxury because they just signed Juan Soto. So if they didn't bring Alonso back, no big deal. They got Juan Soto. They replaced his bat in the lineup. But now, if you aren't able to sign Alonso, you have to go out and replace him. And there's been talk about Kyle Schwarber and all these. But at the end of the day, I don't think the Mets are going to be waiting around. And it seems like he's not, once again, not getting the offers that he thought he was going to get, even off of a better season without the qualified offer attached. So, if I'm Pete Alonso, I'm probably looking at my agent saying, you sold me a bill of goods and you're not coming through. I want a long-term deal, and it's probably not going to happen. Also, in that Joel Sherman article, he said that the veteran agent who said that he'd be lucky to get 4 years, that basically even if he does get 4 years, it's going to be at a lower AAV. Maybe 4 years, $100 million. Maybe they're looking at 3 years. Maybe they're looking at 3 years, $100 million. But if he wants 4, then it's going to be 4 years, $100 million. He's going to have lower AAV. So we'll see what happens with that. Andy Martino has chimed in on the Pete Alonso situation, basically saying that there's no urgency regarding Alonso. There's nobody really coming forward and trying to give a big deal. And also, if a team offers 5 years, that's probably where he's going to sign. The years are what's important with Alonso. We all know that the Mets will pay him more money AAV than anyone else, but they're not willing to go 5 years. It seems like they want to give him 3 years, and he's looking for 5. Maybe they meet in the middle at 4. We'll have to see. But if nobody does give him that 5-year offer, that we're going to see this play out deeper and deeper into the offseason. And the Mets might not wait around this time. And maybe they're going to pivot and go somewhere else and really make it so that Pete Alonso has no chance of coming back unless he's willing to take a 1-year deal in February. That's where I think we're going here. If Pete Alonso is sticking on his 5 years, he's probably not going to be a Met. John Morosi on MLB Network said that the team best positioned to land Pete Alonso besides the Mets is the Red Sox. And honestly, he sounded giddy about the possibility of Pete Alonso playing for the Red Sox, hitting all those home runs, the Green Monster, all that. He sounded giddy about Pete Alonso going to Boston. And honestly, if I'm Pete, do I look at that and say, well, I would hit a lot more home runs in Boston, and maybe I can hit 50 home runs a year and really actually get to 500 home runs like I want to, and maybe have a chance at the Hall of Fame. Maybe that's a better place for him to go. Maybe he's thinking, I'd rather go to the Red Sox at this point, but maybe the Red Sox aren't coming up with that money yet. We saw a report last week, I forget who it was, but they said nobody has stepped to the forefront with Pete Alonso. There's nobody going all out for him. Everybody's just kind of checked in to see what the price is. They're not really negotiating. It's just initial interest at this point, and the Pete Alonso's agent, Scott Boras, is waiting for someone to step to the forefront, and it just hasn't happened. John Morosi also says that he thinks Pete Alonso's about 60-40 to leave the Mets in free agency. And we've talked about the reasons why the Mets might not bring him back and why they might be interested in Kyle Schwarber. I've gone through it many times, Kyle Schwarber versus Pete Alonso. I know where most of the people who have watched or have commented here stand. Most people are all for Pete Alonso over Kyle Schwarber, but Kyle Schwarber is the next best thing. He might even be better, but he has some issues. He's only a DH. He's a left-handed. He might make the Mets a little too left-handed. Soto and Schwarber back-to-back in the lineup. You need a right-handed bat in there as well. And right now, who would that be? Mark Vientos? There's not really that option. Another interesting thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the Mets and outfield alignment and offense. Last night on the Hot Stove Show with Steve Gelbs, Andy Martino, and Todd Zeal, I found it really interesting that Steve Gelbs was really stumping for Jeff McNeil. And they were talking about who they can get for the outfield and who they can get for first base. And I hated the way Andy Martino, I really hated the whole tenor of last night's Hot Stove Show, especially with Andy Martino kind of downplaying everything that the Mets might do, all the rumors out there. He kind of shot them down, and oh yeah, Schwarber, he's going back to the Phillies, it's not realistic, and Alonso they're just going to wait for and see what happens. Bellinger, he's probably going back to the Yankees, and maybe they'll get Jake Myers in the outfield. And it's like, that's kind of crazy to me for saying that, right? If that's your big bat acquisition, say you don't bring Alonso back and you get Jake Myers to play center field, this team is trash. Now, could they go out and get another bat? Sure, but where are you getting them from? Are you making a trade for Fernando Tatis Jr.? Great, love it. But I just don't see that really being a realistic option. And if you don't go out and get a Cody Bellinger or a Kyle Tucker, which Andy Martino says basically is not happening, Mets are not interested in, or you're not bringing back Alonso, or you're not bringing in Schwarber, where's that bat coming from? You have a weak offense at this point, and with all the work they have to do in the pitching staff is just... we're looking at a bad team next year if Jake Myers is your big offensive acquisition, a guy who plays elite defense, great defender, not much of a hitter. So would I love to have him as a defensive center fielder? Sure, but I also love to have Tyrone Taylor in center field. So are you really trading for a guy like Jake Myers, who's probably better than Tyrone Taylor, but is he? Couldn't we just stick Tyrone Taylor out there until Carson Benj is ready? But Steve Gelbs was stumping for Jeff McNeil, basically saying, "Oh, I think the Mets need to be careful here about trading Jeff McNeil. He has a lot of value to this team. He could play left field. He could play first base. He could platoon at first base with Mark Vientos and play left field and all." Guys, Jeff McNeil is done as a player. I was a huge Jeff McNeil fan before this season. I was probably one of the last people that stuck up for him and said, look at all this versatility he adds. He could play so many positions, and he's just a baseball player, and he could go out there and hit. He can't hit. He lost his ability to hit this last season, and for the last few seasons now, ever since winning the batting title. He's declining at every defensive position. Now, he's still fine, right? But he's not going to be playing second base. Marcus Semien plays every day. So, is he going to play first and left field at maybe he'll play first at a really good level. I don't think he's that great of an outfielder. He's okay. He's average. He's adequate in left field. But is that where we're going? After this collapse last year, are we going to say Jeff McNeil's going to be the starting left fielder until Carson Benj is ready and Jake Myers in center field? I'm sorry, but Steve Gelbs, maybe he knows something, maybe he has some inside information where the Mets really aren't that confident in getting an outfield bat, and they're going to really look defense at this point. But if that's the case, not great, and not something that I would be in favor of, having Jeff McNeil and Myers playing in the outfield, and maybe not even re-signing Alonso. The offense would be trash. You have Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto, and who else? Terrible, terrible, terrible. I hope that's not the case. Todd Zeal, you could tell, was completely just not in favor of anything Andy Martino was saying last night about Pete Alonso and all. Todd Zeal was not on board, and I trust the former player who knows how a baseball team works rather than Andy Martino, who's a Yankee fan, reporting on the Mets. So this is really the Pete Alonso and offensive side rumors that we're hearing so far, and now I want to get into some of the pitching rumors that we're hearing. So another thing Andy Martino said on the Hot Stove show last night on SNY are that the Mets are probably not shopping at the top of the free agent market. Now, that kind of goes against some other things we've heard, but it doesn't go against what Stearns has done in the past, right? I think that's more of a feeling on Martino's part. I don't think he has any necessarily information because the Mets don't really leak. So, yes, he's close to the team, but I don't know that he really knows. But it's going by Stearns' reputation. He's not looking to go on a 6 or 7 year deal for a starting pitcher in their 30s. It's just not really in his DNA to do it. We also got a report this morning from Will Salmon of The Athletic that says the Mets are looking to sign a free agent pitcher on a shorter term contract. They're not shopping at the top level, and we're talking about Framber Valdez and the others. But basically mentioned Michael King, Zach Gallen, and Merrill Kelly as options because they're going to get shorter deals, 2 or 3 year deals. Merrill Kelly's 38 years old. Zach Gallen's coming off of a bad year. Michael King's coming off some injuries, so you could see why those guys are going to get shorter term deals, and that they are not sure on the availability of Skubal and Peralta in trade talks, but the Mets would likely see Mitch Keller as an upgrade. Now, this is the worst thing I've heard, right? So just let's talk about the Mitch Keller thing. I'd be fine with adding Mitch Keller to this rotation as a back-end piece, but the Mets don't need more back-end pieces. David Peterson is a mid to back end starter, right? Sean Manaea is a mid to back end starter. Like, you need front end starters, right? Clay Holmes is a 3 starter at best. You need a 1 because you think you have your 2 in Nolan McLean. You need a number 1 starter. Merrill Kelly, Michael King, Zach Gallen. Listen, I love Michael King. I would not be upset if the Mets went and signed Michael King because I think he has the ability to be a high-end starter. If his injury problems work out and he's pitching at his best, I think he could be a top-end guy. Now, he doesn't give you the innings that a true ace needs to, in my opinion, like a Skubal or a Framber Valdez or any of the top guys that you're really thinking of right now. He's not going to give you 7 innings pitched, right? He's more of a 5-6 inning pitcher, but he has nasty stuff. And in a playoff series where your starting pitcher's not really pitching that deep into games anyway, and you're hoping that your bullpen is really strong and you're not going more than 2 times through the order anyway, Michael King is a great fit there. Zach Gallen, like the guy is an innings eater, a guy who pitches a lot of innings. Is he a top-end starter? No, but I would still not be against the signing of Zach Gallen. Merrill Kelly, come on. Merrill Kelly, Mitch Keller, these guys are not who they should be going after. And if this is the case, then I'm going to say Stearns cheaped out and Stearns wasn't willing to go the extra mile. And I'll be joining you. The Mets need to shop at the top end of the market. Now, I understand not wanting to go after Framber Valdez with his issues and his age and the length of contract that you're going to have to give. But then you need to be aggressive in the trade market. You have to get a top end guy. And this by Andy Martino and Will Salmon, we're going to go after Mitch Keller. We don't know if Peralta's available. Make Peralta available. Go to the Brewers and say, we will give you this. And blow them away and get him. Or Skubal, right? Skubal to blow the Tigers away if they're not looking to trade him. You're going to have to give up a lot. You're going to talk about Nolan McLean. I'm not in favor of that. But you go to one of these teams and say, maybe he's not available, but this is what I'm willing to give up if he is available. Make it happen. And maybe Stearns is doing that. Maybe it's just not working out. I don't know, but this is very, very bleak. Now, in talking about Skubal, we also saw that Buster Olney says that he was told by an executive that the Tigers will trade Skubal. And I know that that's kind of confusing because everyone else is saying he's absolutely not available. They're not looking to trade him. I think that's going to be something that takes a while to develop. I think the Tigers, listen, if you go to them and blow them away, sure. If you give them Nolan McLean and Jonah Tong and Brandon Sproat and, Jet Williams and Carson Benj, are they going to trade him? Yeah, because they would be stupid not to because of all that return for 1 year of Skubal. But I don't think the Mets are going to do that. I think they're going to wait to see if he's available. Someone like Peralta, you're going to give up less for, so the offer wouldn't have to be that crazy. But if he is available, if Skubal is available in this market, the Mets have to be involved, and I believe that they will be. He is the perfect piece for their pitching staff, the true number one pitcher. And I would love to see it. Hopefully he is. Peralta's number 2 for me. I don't want to see Mitch Keller as a Met, unless he's a trade for Jeff McNeil. That's the only way I'd want Mitch Keller as another back-end depth piece in the rotation. The guy has a 4.19 career ERA. Like, he's not good. He's a back-end guy. That gives you innings. Yes, he gives you innings. He's an innings eater at the back end of your rotation. He's probably not getting a playoff start. Like, I know you have to make the playoffs first, but I'm sorry. That should not be the plan to look at Mitch Keller or Merrill Kelly. Michael King, Zach Gallen, I could live with. Maybe if you add another piece as well. Maybe if it's Michael King and Mitch Keller, sure, maybe I'll be okay with that. But what you really need is a true ace, and none of these guys are that. Also, we've talked about Framber Valdez a couple times. The Mets and the Giants have been listed by a couple different sources as the number 1 landing spots for Framber Valdez. That goes against everything we've heard from Will Salmon and Andy Martino that they're not shopping at the high end. John Morosi also says that the Mets spoke to Framber Valdez at the GM meetings, and that goes completely against what Andy Martino said back in November. I think it was November 20th. He said that the Mets did not speak with Framber. The Mets were not one of the teams that spoke with Framber Valdez or his agent at the GM meeting. So, who do you believe there? I would choose to believe Andy Martino just because he knows the team better. He's around. John Morosi's a national reporter. Andy Martino is a guy who has sources within the Mets. He works for SNY. He has sources. He knows what's going on with the Mets. You can say whatever you want. I don't agree with his takes 99% of the time. I'm sure you don't either. But when it comes to information, just real information that happened, he's more trustworthy than John Morosi. John Morosi's not really a breaking news guy. He's more of a commentator on the sport. He's a columnist. Like, he's not someone who's breaking those stories. Where Andy Martino, yes, he's kind of a columnist, but he's also a beat reporter in a lot of ways. Also, it was said that the Mets are still very involved with Edwin Diaz. That was said by Andy Martino as well as many others, but it was said specifically on the Hot Stove Show last night with Todd Zeile, Andy Martino, Steve Gelbs, that the Mets are still very involved with Edwin Diaz, and the years is the holdup. I think the Mets, according to what Martino was saying, the Mets are looking to get him at a 3-year deal, which is a 1-year extension off what he had, probably the same amount of money, maybe a little bit more to get him to sign a lower year's deal, but he's sticking to 5. And the biggest competition is still the Blue Jays. They have a lot of money. Maybe they go 5 years. Maybe they go 4 years. I think if it's 4 years, the Mets match and go 4 years. But it seems like he's really sticking with 5 and hoping to get a 5-year deal. And that's really the story, right? Pete Alonso sticking on a 5-year deal. Edwin Diaz sticking on a 5-year deal. The nice thing is, even though this is not close to a resolution, the Mets are also still involved with Robert Suarez and Pete Fairbanks as kind of backups for Edwin Diaz. Now, those backups can no longer be backups if they sign, right? If Robert Suarez gets a blowaway deal from the Dodgers or Pete Fairbanks, ends up going to Toronto. Now, the nice thing is, I think that there's been rumors that Toronto is involved with Diaz, but also Fairbanks. So if they go out and sign Fairbanks, then Edwin Diaz might have one less landing spot. It's just like if the Red Sox go out and sign Kyle Schwarber, I think Pete Alonso has one less landing spot. That would be a great thing in my opinion. Let Fairbanks go to Toronto and let Edwin Diaz really only have one spot with the Mets, or maybe the Dodgers are involved. But what Andy Martino says, he doesn't really see the Dodgers being involved at that much money with having Tanner Scott there. They gave him a big deal last year. Now, they're the Dodgers. You never know what they're going to do. They're always involved in anyone. If they like a player, they're going to go out and get him. But, Robert Suarez, listen, if you had Robert Suarez with Devin Williams, first off, you don't know which one's the closer. Probably Devin Williams. Robert Suarez is your setup guy / closer. You can kind of mix and match them depending on matchups. You could do a lot worse than your 8th and ninth inning being Suarez and Williams, but you would do a lot better if it was Williams to Diaz. So, it's nice to see that they're still involved. It's not Diaz or bust. It seems like they are still shopping at the top end of the market. So that's really all the rumors going around. It was early, first day of the winter meetings. Teams were still arriving. I'm sure preliminary talks. I know there was a deal made. Mike Soroka signed with the Diamondbacks this morning, so maybe it's starting to heat up. Maybe we'll see some more deals. But this is going to lay the groundwork for the rest of the offseason, and I think it's important to talk about a lot of these rumors because it's from people who were there and seeing what's going on and talking to people. So I think it's still important to talk about these things. Hopefully we see some action soon, or at least some more hot rumors coming out. But anyway, it's really all I got. And until next time, let's go Mets.